everyone, and welcome to another Scots Whay podcast. And you have just heard Home Sweet Home by L-Space, and I'm joined by L-Space right now with Lily Hyam. Hello, Lily.
Hello.
Gordon Johnson. Gordon.
Hello.
And Dickson Telfer. Hello, Dickson.
Hello.
And thanks for coming along, guys. Now, I'm always wary of this first question because most musicians don't like to answer it, but I think you guys might be different. So I'm going to say describe your music.
Oh, man. It's a tough one.
Should we just leave?
Yeah.
Well, what got me thinking about this actually was looking over some of the reviews, my own and other people's, and sometimes it feels like it's just words, random words put beside each other. It's dream, noise, pop, and it's like one of those, like Whay used to just put random words together and see if you could come up with a lyric.
Absolutely.
And I'm wary of that when doing reviews, that you just kind of think, oh, what does it sound like? And if you find it difficult, you just kind of use other terms and put them together. Mm-hmm. But so I just wondered what you guys thought about how you're described by folk like myself, I suppose.
I think we also put the words together in that way. We started saying utopian pop.
Yeah, because we used to call ourselves dream pop, and then I listened to dream pop and realised that we are absolutely not that. And we're not really noise pop because it's not as jaggy.
Yeah, it's not noisy.
It's
not noisy enough.
Exactly. So, and then we touched on things like trip hop quite a lot as well, but we're not that laid back. So it's really.
Are we even pop?
I don't think I call it pop because the songs are short. I don't. It might not be.
Not hooky. So
yeah,
that makes it poppy.
I mean, I hate this term, but something like art pop is probably verging on
pretentious.
It's massively pretentious, but
it might be the most accurate term, but not one.
No, I would never use it. But it's like that's how people would describe Radiohead's kind of later career, which is I think quite close to what we sound like. But I wouldn't know how to categorise that either. So it's really difficult.
I guess the reason for asking the question is, one, does it matter? And also, what do you often kind of read reviews of your stuff and think, well, okay, you might even say you like it. I don't recognise your definition of what we do.
Yeah, there definitely have been some times like that. People have compared us to bands that I just would not have imagined.
Some of them I haven't heard of, which is quite nice because it means then you can listen to them and maybe find something you like.
Yeah, I've done that with other bands where I've said this sounds like, say for instance, Echo and the Bunnymen, and the band will get back to me and say I've never heard of them, and going away and say, oh, actually, yeah, we do, because it's come through various. They've listened to bands who were then influenced by them. That works that way.
I think in this sort of day and age and in the climate we're in, it is actually quite important to be able to define your music quite clearly, because if you're vying for attention and if you're vying for PR opportunities and marketing and stuff, you need a short, snappy way of describing yourself. Otherwise, you can't have this big, long, rambling diatribe. So
just have an essay ready for everyone to hand out.
Yeah,
it helps the target audience, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. I've taken to saying, because people have recommended I don't say we sound like such and such a band, but I've been saying something on the lines of we sound a bit like Goldfrapp covering Radiohead if they're going through a bit of a Portisheady sort of phase, and I think that kind of sums up a wee bit, but then it's not, there's so much missing from that.
Maybe it's a good thing though.
I think
we're exactly this or we're exactly that.
I think it is a good thing. I think that tends to be the more interesting bands to listen to, the ones that you can't just immediately put them into a bracket and say, well, that's metal, that's fine.
Exactly. I'd be devastated if somebody listened to us and said, oh, that's definitely
exactly
that's
for that exact audience.
That's indie pop. Okay.
I think a lot of it's got to do with the vocals, though. Because sometimes the songs can be heavily layered and quite noisy, and then you've got Lily's voice coming through.
Yeah,
it's like peace in a noisy place. It just adds that extra.
A solitary lighthouse on a rocky coast.
So, all that. We're getting very poetic here.
As the singer. Other times when people think they've heard how you sound and make assumptions that's how the band are going to sound, or do you know what I mean by that? They have they compare you to other female singers and say, is that this person sounds like ABC, and actually you think, well, no, I don't, and the band doesn't sound like that either.
I think maybe that does happen sometimes because when the vocals are kind of at the forefront of the music, it's the first thing that they might hook onto and try to compare. And then if they first compare the vocals to other vocalists that are with other instrumentation that doesn't actually match, they might give like a kind of weak comparison if they're focusing on the style of female vocals, because the one that they compare it to doesn't interact with the music around it in the same kind of way.
I think it happened quite a lot for a lot of bands.
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
Because I remember reading years ago, people would lump Frightened Rabbit and The Twilight Sad together because they both sang in Scottish accents. Couldn't get two more different
Yes,
bands.
I agree.
But that became a genre.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of Scottish music indie scene. I think it happens to us.
Yeah.
People hear Lily's voice, a kind of ethereal thing, like, oh, ethereal vocals, dream pop, job done.
Yeah.
Without any consideration for what's actually underneath. So I think the whole female vocals has almost become a genre in itself, which is ridiculous.
I guess that's the sort of thing I was thinking about, and the Frightened Rabbit, Twilight Sad's a very interesting one, because that seemed to, because of their success, then a lot of bands that came afterward, people said, oh, they sound like Frightened Rabbit and Twilight Sad, and you think, well, they don't really sound like each other, so how do they sound like?
How can they sound like that?
Yeah.
It's madness.
I think it was part of a discussion I saw on Twitter recently as well about female-fronted becoming a genre, and how the women that are discussing it on Twitter don't want that to be a genre because they don't want the female to be what is the key thing about it.
No, absolutely.
The music is the most important thing, and they just happen to be female. And that
Yeah,
can be what it's
exactly. Yeah,
focused
of
on.
course.
And maybe it's discussed more in the context of trying to balance the gender of things, and then that term comes out as a tool to balance. You know, like we need a female-fronted band for the balance of this, so it might be used in those kind of ways, but in other ways, it's like a qualifier to being a musician. It's not you're just a musician, you're a female musician.
Yes.
Whereas male musician is the default.
Yeah, and that happens. I mean, that happens across the arts. You know, you're not just a writer, a female writer, or whatever, that kind of thing. But I think you're also right about the voice being at the forefront. Which, you know, so you say, well, they're singing in Scottish, so it's the same sound, or they're, you know, rapping in Welsh, so it's the same. I mean, because it did happen when Super Furries and other bands were going to play, and that folk lumped them all together, but actually their music was really different.
Definitely.
And when I do write the vocal lines, I always try and make it fit tightly with the instrumentation. It's not like just something like a pop song that you stick on top of the instrumentation, and that's less important in a way. I've tried to make the vocal melody part of like just another instrument among all the others, and that they fit together and complement each other.
Yeah, it's an ensemble piece.
I think we've definitely been put on some lineups just because we are quote unquote female fronted. You know, there've been some lineups where it's been like all men and Lily's the only woman on the lineup, and we didn't suit the other bands. You know, we had nothing in common. Like we did a gig in Opium years ago.
Oh, that was really fun.
Yeah, they put us on.
Gig, actually.
It was a great gig, but they put us on. There was a really heavy kind of psychedelic post rock band, and then a kind of screamo band, and we were right in the middle. Like, we do not belong here at all.
It's just because the songs like Southern Reach and that are big and noisy.
Exactly.
They're like, we'll have a bit of that.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got a girl as well.
Exactly.
It's hard in those situations because you don't want to be there just because of that, but at the same time, those music organisers are making an effort to balance.
Exactly.
We got a few fans that night as well.
Oh, we did. Things we can't. Yeah, you're right. I wouldn't chastise somebody for making an effort to have more women on lineups. I think it's really important.
Yeah, they're trying to break the cycle.
Yeah, I think the problem is that there's so many like really, really talented women in the Scottish music scene that they are all lumped together. So I see lineups where you've got somebody like Lou McLean, like singer-songwriter, on the same lineup as I don't know, us. You know, and it's just really strange. It's quite odd. It doesn't necessarily fit, but I think we are lumped together a wee bit.
But sometimes those kind of lineups where there isn't a through line can be interesting in themselves, because as you say, people say, well, I'm here to hear this band, and actually, I would never normally have listened to that band. That actually sounds quite good. That's what I think was quite good about the 7 song clubs that Warren McIntyre puts on at the John, because he just puts on 3 bands that he likes and thinks people might, come to do. He doesn't kind of curate them by going, well, they would fit with them or they would fit with them, and I think that can be quite nice.
I do like those kind of lineups as well, and I think it's part of the reason I thought Transmit was a bit disappointing is that it was quite bland in its lineup. A lot of it was quite similar, whereas other festivals have more like genre mixing. Like you can see, like a pop artist, and then there'll be a hip hop artist, and then there'll be some jazz, and
Whereas Transfit's kind of like watching beige paint dry on a magnolia wall. It's just so dull. I mean, there's only so many guitar bands with like 4 straight white guys singing about shagging and drinking that you can really listen to.
They've got some hip hop on the Friday. That's probably the most interesting day.
That is the most interesting day. Jerry Cinnamon on right before Stormzy.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
that's what I want.
Yeah, that's going to be a party. Yeah, no, that Glasgow's going to be absolutely jumping that night.
Well, you mentioned kind of a little bit about how you write the songs, and I'm interested in that. So yeah, how did the songwriting process work for you guys?
A lot of wine. Wine really helps. We've got different approaches, and I think you can tell in the songs. It usually goes one of 2 ways. Lily will write a sort of a guitar-based song, like purely around vocals, like you tend to start with vocals.
Yeah, like it's more melody-driven. The guitar's just to like support the idea of the song, and can be quite folky sometimes as well, just because of other influences I've had. And then it gets to you.
Then I take it and kind of pick it apart and then rebuild it with synths and beats and everything. Or I do the synths and beats first, and then we work on it together, and we tend to do it quite remotely. We don't really just sit in a room together and batter out songs, just because of the way that we sound. That would be impossible.
I know you're also, almost the ultimate Central Belt band, because you've got Edinburgh, Falkirk and Glasgow stretching along.
Triangle.
Yeah.
And we're just going to take that little quote from you saying ultimate Central Belt band and just put that on our website.
That could be a new genre. Yeah.
But
sound ultimate Central Belt.
I wonder, in the days where you can send sound files so easily and things like that, is that part of it as well?
Absolutely. We wouldn't.
So it works.
Yeah, we wouldn't exist if it wasn't for. If we tried to all write together, we get nothing done because it would take so long. And I write music constantly anyway. So it tends to be, it always ends up being a collaborative effort, and always changes once we get into the studio and listen to it properly, or when we play it live, it changes quite a lot as well. But initially it's usually...
Yeah, there's some really nice moments. So like Gordon sends me about 600 songs a week by email, and then I'll just noodle about.
Gordon is nodding, going, that's a quiet week.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
I just noodle about in the bass, and then Lily will send a version that she's done in her house with a mic that's all kind of rough and ready. And then you can sort of hear it coming together, and then there's sometimes really nice moments. It doesn't always work out, but sometimes really nice moments in a rehearsal room. We get together, so we'll try the new song, and then you can just hear it gelling, and it's like, oh great, aye. So we did this in 3 separate parts of Scotland, and we've come together and it's working. So that's great. Sometimes it doesn't work, or sometimes there's an element of a song that doesn't quite work that we then need to revisit and iron out, but it seems to work okay as a process.
And I think the different ways we do it as well, with starting with different people putting down the first foundations of the song, forces us to write different songs as well. If I just wrote songs on a guitar in my flat for all of the songs, I think everything would sound very different, and there would be less variety in the vocals, I think. Whereas when you send me an arranged synth piece or piano piece, it forces me to write in a different way, because I have to take into account the melodies you've got, make sure the melody's complementary, play around with the rhythm. It challenges us and forces us to do something different.
Actually makes it more creative. Restriction makes you more creative. Strangely.
I think if it was just me writing the kind of stuff I write, there'd be no consideration for melody, because I don't have a great ear for melody. I don't know how Lily just pulls these things out of thin air. It's amazing.
Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it takes revisiting it over and over again for a week.
There's when I don't ever think about that sort of stuff when I'm writing music. Like, we've got a couple of instrumentals called Propaganda and Southern Reach, and I love the songs, but they'd be impossible to sing over because it's just ear-splitting noise for the most part. And if it was all like that, first of all, we'd be a very different band, and it would be quite boring, I think. Whereas we strike a good balance between the kind of noisy, densely layered stuff and Lily's much more kind of melody-driven pop, sentimentalities. Absolutely not the word I wanted there.
Sensibilities.
Sensibilities.
I thought pop sentimentalities is a different genre altogether.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did the band come together? I mean, it's an obvious question, but it seems an important one when you're all bringing different things to it.
Right, go for the shoe story. Go on.
Yeah. Lily and I met back in 2014 when we worked for the same youth charity, and it was like proper poverty wages. You know, we were desperately poor, and one day I snuck around to a little back office place to glue my shoes back together because they were falling apart, only to find Lily doing exactly the same thing, and we bonded over that we couldn't afford
Like
basic
glue.
necessities. Yeah, like the glue. So
And I think that was like the first time we really spoke properly, and then from then we realised we have similar interests in like the kind of books we read and the kind of music we listen to, so we did a lot of chat about speculative fiction, and then
Yeah, and at the time I ran a thing called The Grind, which was a journal of the arts, and it was all a bit mad, but I met Dickson through that because we had a mutual friend, Craig, who wanted to put on Dickson's book launch at the time, so we did it as a joint thing with The Grind. So we met.
Which was also 2014, just a wee bit later.
Yeah, it was actually.
Later
So
in the year,
yeah, so we did the book launch, and then it was actually a couple of.
That's when we were all in the same room for the first time, because Lily was doing the sound that day. Because the book launch involved a bit of music, and like I had a lapel mic rather than a stand mic, because it was being quite animated, telling stories.
it was an interesting one to do the sound for, because it was mostly people speaking, and then it was Adam Stafford doing all his interesting noises.
That was also when we had the guy from Mouse Eat Mouse play. They were like a really odd kind of Scottish folk hip hop kind of thing. They're absolutely brilliant, and the guy is mad as a box of frogs. I remember I put on a gig with him once, and he has a song where it's just 30 seconds of screaming, and I said, "You're not going to play that, are you?" He goes, No, don't do that live. Cue 30 seconds of screaming. I've never seen an audience thin out as quick as he did that. But basically, after that first initial night, we all stayed in touch. You know, Lily and I worked together. Dickson and I worked with stuff on The Grind, and then when Lily and I started to do music, Dickson caught wind of it and asked if we wanted some bass.
I just said I'd play a bit of bass if you want.
Yeah.
And
Worked that well.
Yeah,
because I had first knew you as a writer, and had you always done music though?
over the years, various different bands and projects. I'd always been interested in music, but you know, sometimes you try something for a while and people move on. So we went to live somewhere else, or we had children, and so bands would start to stop happening as regularly. So I didn't have anything going on at the time, I don't think. So I just said it kind of off the cuff. So I'll play a bit of bass if you're looking for some bottom end in your songs. And then I sent some old material to Gordon just to let him hear the kind of stuff that I could do. And he's like, "Oh, we'll try a track," and we did Blue Flowers and Brother Mars. Those were the two. And then that was it.
Yeah, so that was
the start of it.
Yeah, that was January 2017. Lily and I recorded a little bit before then, just in my living room. So it was January 2017, and then I didn't really know what was going to come of it, but we sent it around a couple of places. In fact, you were one of the first people to review it, the Sol Zero EP. Then we were offered a gig at King Tut's a week after that, I think. I thought, crap, we need a band. You know, we actually need to figure this out. And that was mightily stressful. But at the time, you know, I'd grown up going to gigs in King Tut's, and I've always wanted to play there, so I was going to pass it up easily.
Sure.
So we drafted in another person we worked with, Maggie, who helped out with synth for a while. Then Maura helped out, and now Stephen. So we've got like a revolving door of fourth members, but
but like Spinal Tap have drummers, you've got keyboard players.
Yeah, exactly.
They all bring something different as well. They're very talented and bring a different sound.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Ideally, we could have all of them playing at once and have a massive band. That would be lovely.
I don't think we've ever been cooler than when Maura was in the band, though.
Come back,
so
Maura.
I would spend ages trying to figure out how to not look like a shambles, and then Maura would just rock up effortlessly, fantastic. Really depressing. It just looks like a pile of crap.
But as you mentioned briefly, you've got Stephen Solo playing with you at the moment. And what does he bring to the band?
great chat, and also memes like you've never seen. His meme chat is absolutely stellar. I love it.
It makes me feel less old as well. There's quite an age gap between Maura and I, although I got on great with her, I have to say. But it was like the age gap wasn't really as big as it was. But so Stephen's more my kind of age.
Stephen brings a tremendous amount to the band. A lot of...
knows his stuff, eh?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of music industry knowledge, a lot of just sheer musical knowledge.
Yeah.
And he kind of pushes us and encourages us to do things, really. He's absolutely brilliant.
And he brings new like synth lines that we hadn't had before, and knows how to pick out synth sounds very well, which seems like not a very important thing, but it can totally change the tone of a song.
I can imagine.
So just knowing kind of what sound would fit the theme is really important. And he does that well.
And he taught Gordon that he was maybe unintentionally using unresolved chords.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. My lack of musical knowledge is somewhat fabled. I know zero musical
It's the same with
theory.
Blur though, apparently.
Yeah.
But they get away with it alright.
Yeah, so Stephen said, "Oh, are you sure it's this chord? You know, it's unresolved." It's what? It's like
that's a shame.
Yeah,
Resolution is not our bag.
Yeah, it was. It's always quite fun when we were trying to learn the songs initially to play live. I remember Maggie. She was a classically trained pianist, and she'd say, "What chord
Sure
is
she
this?"
still is.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she rescinded it. But she said, "What chord is this one?" "Oh, I don't know." She went, "Well, what notes is it?" "These ones." And I just point at them and "Oh, that's a D suspended whatever." I went, "That is fascinating. I did not know that. Thank you." And there have been other songs that we couldn't play live because I didn't know how I wrote it. I just made all these sounds. It sounded nice. That's great, but I can't recreate it live because I simply do not know what the chords are.
Right.
And I don't know. So we have a wee song called Recycle, which is a lovely little, it's like a skit almost. No idea how to play it. Don't know what the chords are, don't know how to figure it out.
Yeah, because we were going to do it live one time, but then we realised we can't.
We spent an awful lot of time in the studio with people shouting at me saying, "Why have you done this? You know, why is all this?" And I just start sobbing, you know, I don't know, it just is the way it is.
I think sometimes not knowing music theory can make you write in a different way.
Yeah, very much so.
I find
But
that liberating.
some things though that I've learned more recently I think are quite helpful. So I used to do this thing where I'd write a melody line and chord sequence where it comes in a cycle, so that if you imagine there's 4 sections, the first chord would be the same as the fourth chord, which means then the fourth chord and the first chord of the next section are the same. And that sometimes became a bit difficult when arranging the songs. And also I think sometimes it loses the impact when you come to a new phase, because instead of changing into a new chord that can give an impact, it's just a continuation of the chord.
Right.
And I was reading some music theory recently about cadence and particular chords that are of a particular interval from the first chord that set up the next phrase more effectively. And now I've read about that, I think I'm going to try and do that a bit more.
But theory's alright, isn't it? To inform or inspire, but it's all
inspired
based
me
in
to
theory
try
and it
that.
gets a bit restricted.
Most of the theory I've learned is from when people described our music using a certain word, and I'm not sure if it's an insult or not, so I have to Google it. It's like somebody said one of our songs was full of contrapuntal melodies. Like, you son of a bitch, what? How dare you?
Dare you call me that?
Yeah, sorry, puntal, you know, then I looked into it and it was actually quite pleasant. So deleted that angry email. So, but yeah, I think we're definitely learning as we go along.
We've got little bits of theory and I can read little bits here and there, but I don't know, I quite like just doing stuff more organically. It's such a cliche, isn't it?
I think it's true. I don't want to learn. I don't really want to learn how I do what I do, because I think it would change what I do. I'm quite happy.
Skills.
I don't know any scales. I know that if you use all white keys, it might be C, but that's basically it. I wouldn't want to learn though. I think it will happen naturally, but for the time being, I'm actively not learning what I'm doing.
I think for the contrapuntal thing, I think that came about as a result of the way we write songs. You'd send me a piece and I'd start making up a melody before I've really analysed the structure of it. So then my melodies would just run over different phrases differently, and I did it without thinking about it. Whereas I think if I went for contrapuntal, I always worry I'm saying that wrong, it might sound different.
Now, I know that my listeners will know what contrapuntal means, but for me, what does the definition, what's the term mean?
After you, Lily.
It's oh my goodness, I really hope I remember this correctly. It's where the melody line runs over the accompanying phrases at different patterns. So you might have, let's just say 2 melodies, and every time they occur together at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could have them so that they are, think of like tectonic plates shifting over each
Sure,
other.
yeah.
So one ends at a different point at the other from the other one,
Mm-hmm.
and then they overlap in different ways.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's...
I mean, it strikes me that you're a band that are always wanting to kind of evolve and try new things, and you say like looking at theory and saying, well, how that can develop and all that. Is that something fair?
Oh yeah, I mean we're always doing something mad. The next album is going to be very different from the first because we want to try something different.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just keeps things interesting. You know, we've got so many different projects going on. I think ambition comes into a lot as well. You know, we're a very ambitious band. We want to do well, and
Sure.
if we just keep doing the same thing over and over, that we won't get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we try to do as many different things as possible.
Did you have a fairly clear idea of how you were going to sound?
No,
not at all.
Really,
No, I mean when Lily and I first started writing little pieces of music, we're sort of limited by our technology. We only had a small Korg synth and no real way of recording it, and the vocals were done in my living room with like stretching my wife's tights over the microphone as a really primitive pop guard, and we just did what we could. You know, we didn't have any idea. We didn't set out to make music in a particular way because we couldn't.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
I couldn't set out to do what we did because I had no idea what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it kind of progressed naturally. I think maybe now we have a bit more of an idea. So when we're putting the second album together, we looked at it and thought, we kind of do some more like some heavier stuff or some darker stuff. So we'll maybe write things with that in mind. But for the most part, it has really just evolved naturally.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that were always going to be inevitably in there. Lyric-wise, I think I was always going to write about kind of the future and future technologies and speculative fiction and things like that. Just because that's what I like writing about. So I think that's just always going to be there. And also, I can't really sing in any other way. I'm not trained in any way. I'm going to get singing lessons, but my voice is quite restricted in what I can do. I can't like belt out like Adele or anything like that. So the tone of the vocals...
it wouldn't suit though, would it? If you could belt out like Adele, it make it really suit.
No.
It would just
music.
make our music different sounding. So we've got that restriction of the biological instrument.
Oh, it's like that line in Walk the Line where they said we'd play faster if we could. Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah, I would write different music if I could play it, but I can't. So I like what we've done. Sorry.
I was going to say there are some other things that you've taken into account for the next album as well, where you're going to make the production a bit cleaner and have a few less synth tracks. For anyone that doesn't know, in our first album, there are some of the synths. There are like 40 synths playing at the same time or something like that.
In hindsight, perhaps overkill. I don't know. But,
For Home Sweet Home, which you just heard,
yeah, actually,
that's got a lot of sense in it.
yeah, I think at the end there's 6 different melodies all playing at once.
Right.
And it works great for that, but I think for the second album it's going to be a slightly, not stripped back like by any manner of means, but I think they'll
Just a bit different.
yeah, it'll be a bit different. There'll be a little bit less going on because we're kind of experimenting with putting the songs first almost instead of the sounds. We're releasing some songs in June that we wrote in France, and it's just bass, vocals, a very minimal beat, and electric piano, because we wanted to see if we could do it. You know, we wanted to prove to ourselves that we could, you know, write really strong, catchy, interesting songs without the kind of support net of 40 layers of synth. And it's worked really well, I think.
Good songs.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to releasing them.
Well, what I also think you seem to have is a really strong sense of the kind of look of the band. I don't just mean how you look, but like the design, kind of press shots, even like down to the fonts that you use. It strikes me that you think very carefully about that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of graphic design. I think it's really important. There's nothing worse than when you see a gig poster that's poorly designed or it just looks amateurish, because the way you present yourself reflects on how people think of you. We did quite a good job when we first started, I think, of looking like a much bigger and more established band than we actually were. We just talked a good game. It's all PR, which is my day job.
Yeah.
So I just really like choosing fonts, to be honest. Just really, really into fonts.
I think also because for most humans are very visual. It's like our major priority sense that we turn to first. So I think the visuals of something will affect how you hear the music as well.
Yeah.
It can set up an atmosphere and an expectation, which can then change kind of the context of the music in your head and what sequences or sounds you pick out when you're listening to it. So getting the visuals right is almost like kind of warming up someone's brain to interpret your music in the right way.
Yeah, because it can cause some like weird cognitive dissonance when you see, if you've never heard a band before and you look at their artwork and you expect one thing, then it turns out to be wildly different. It's not always a bad thing, but it can be a little bit jarring. I've noticed that there seems to be a bit of a trend now for metal bands to have, it used to be all like weird scratchy fonts and like symmetries and all that sort of bleak stuff, but they've gone the opposite direction now, and it's a lot of the metal albums I see now are just white covers or really predominantly light and airy, and I think it's a deliberate move to give you a different impression of the music when you start listening. Which I find
as opposed to just black, like
Yeah.
Spinal Tap.
Yeah. So there's a Great Sun album called Monoliths and Dimensions, and it's just a massive black circle. And I think that is exactly what that music sounds like. Just dense, no light
you're going
escapes.
to fall into difficulty getting out of.
Exactly. It's brilliant, such a good album actually.
But it's interesting, I think, what you say, because when you said you sent me kind of really early stuff, and as far as I know, you already had your website set up there, I think,
so.
and then seeing you live and all that, and it did feel like this was a band that had been working for years together. Do you know what I mean? Because the look was down, the look matched the sound, then the live show matched the sound and the look and all of that thing. It seemed like it had been really thought through. You condensed it into a short space of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were basically 3-ish months between us getting together and writing some stuff, releasing it, and then us actually being a band. We haven't been agonising over this for a long time. We're not the sort of band that would take years to define their sound before doing it. We're very much a work in progress band. If anybody who's been following us from the beginning, like you have, we're a little bit rough and ready sometimes, we are evolving as we go along, we're making it up as we go along, and I would always rather do that. I think it keeps things interesting for us as a band, because I can't imagine spending years and years and years focusing on something so much and then presenting it to the world. I would rather show people our progress, warts and all, because we've released some stuff that when I look back on, maybe it's not perfect, maybe it's not ideal, but I would rather listen to that flawed artifact than something that was so polished and so perfect. Like, where do you go from there? I think it would really restrict us creatively if we planned too far in advance.
I like to think that maybe people that have heard us from the beginning are then kind of like taken on a journey with our space, see things develop, and like how from starting, and maybe still now actually some of our performances are a bit rough. But I speak for myself here. Like,
The last one was polished.
Oh, last one was wonderful. Yeah.
I know that I can work on my singing technique a lot, and I'm totally aware of that. But I don't want to let it stop me making music and stop me performing. And I do get the fear sometimes that we're going to blow it kind of by performing live and then not being as good as we could be, and then people will think that's how we're going to be forever, rather than thinking like we're on a journey and this is one part of it.
Possible to be brilliant all the time.
It's
unreal.
No, and what you get then is the same gig time after time. And what I would say is there's almost a kind of or punk or indie feel about we're learning as we go. You know, I mean, you mentioned, I think before we started recording, that or no, when you were recording, that you had to play the gig in King Tut's, and then we have to get a band together here. And it was similarly the Teenage Superstars film I was telling you about beforehand. They were talking to the Soup Dragons, and they got the chance to play in Glasgow, and they went, we've never played live before, well, we're going to have to do something like that because it's next week. So that whole idea that, we're not going to let this stop us, we're going to grab the chance and go and do it, and and learn as we go.
Yeah, I would always rather go see a band that made mistakes but were interesting than go and see a band that were technically incredibly proficient but bland. I mean, if you go and if you go and see an L-Space show, it's pretty much 50-50. Like, I was gonna go. It's always good. I think we're always like I think we're always quite good, but there are some times when we just play things a bit differently. We do things differently. It sounds weird, but I would always rather do that as a performer and as a watcher, an audience member. I would always rather see a band make mistakes and grow than, like you said, just see the same gig over and over and over.
Because in any kind of live performance, that's often where the real kind of memorable stuff happens. Yeah. It's
connection, isn't it?
When something goes a bit wrong, or you do something new for the first time. Then that's when you make a connection, as you say, with the audience, because they thought, I was there when that happened.
I mean, our very first gig, we were panicked. We didn't have enough songs. We didn't really know what we were doing. First song, Dickson's bass strap broke. And he had to spend the rest of the song kind of crouching down, and I didn't notice because I was too busy, like, sweat pouring into my eyes, lying to myself, thinking, why am I doing this to myself? This is the worst thing I've ever done. Turned out it was actually...
Shave your eyebrows or something, so that's what they're for, to stop the sweat going in your eyes.
They could only do so much. But that, as a band, that I realised that at that point, things are never going to be perfect. I think if we'd gone and played our first gig and it had been absolutely spot on, it would have raised this impossible bar that we could never really hit again. So I would always rather that we made mistakes.
I think the main thing as well with that gig you're talking about is like that song we decided to do the day before, or even that day maybe.
Yeah, we hadn't played it together.
In a rehearsal, we hadn't really played it together much. I was like, oh, come on, we'll open with it. Alright, okay. So I was kind of freaking out about this. Started the song with the right note, and then my guitar strap fell apart. So I'm on my knees playing this bass line.
I totally think that's just your style. The kneeling bassist.
And it was, even though it wasn't a perfect set, that opening track will always sort of stick with me, because that's when it was like, all right, there is a real energy here, and it is connecting with the audience. But what you're saying about like gigs being perfect, I remember somebody, I hope Bruce Springsteen's not going to be listening to this, but I remember somebody saying, I'm a big Bruce Springsteen fan, and they went to see him live, and they said it was terrible. I was surprised to hear that. And they said, well, it was technically brilliant, but I might as well have just stayed at home and put the record on.
Yeah, I think
because
that's
it just
true.
sounded exactly, it was too polished. There was no connection with the audience, there was no rawness about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
It cost me 90 quid.
I get that a lot with massive bands. Like if you go to see Muse, I mean, I'm a big Muse fan, I absolutely love them, but it's like Dickson said, you might as well stay home and listen to the CD. That's why I think bands get to the point where they put on amazing stage shows, because there's no unpredictability to the music. I saw them at the Barrows. I saw them at the Barrows a couple of years ago. They just did a tiny tour, and they were absolutely incredible because they were playing some new songs. Clearly didn't know how to play them. It was all very rough, and there was no fanciness to it. It was brilliant. I saw them at the Hydro a couple of months later, and it was a brilliant show. Absolutely loved it. But it was note for note, absolutely immaculate, and it was quite. It was a bit boring. If you took all the visuals away, it is quite dull.
It was just like the CD on loud.
Exactly, and you're with 15,000 other sweaty people, so it's not a great experience. Whereas I'd rather go see a band without all the fancy stage stuff and just rattle through some songs that they don't know how to play.
I have come to. I now mainly go to small gigs partly for that reason. Also because 90 quid and 100 quid for me. But because one, it's just a better place to be, when you can kind of see the whites of their eyes rather than watching something on a screen or something like that.
Yeah, I find that when I go to big gigs like that, I watch the screens because it's the only way you can actually see what's going on. It's a bit. I saw Belle and Sebastian at the Hydro. I was distinctly underwhelmed. I like Belle and Sebastian, but it was a really soulless gig, and it was a bit disappointing. Whereas I'm sure if I saw them in a smaller place, it would be
it's such a big venue to try and
get that connection. You know,
isn't
it's not a place for twee jangly pop. You know, you can't fill an
It's
arena.
a strange
with that.
booking, yeah.
I think this is quite a good discussion for people in other bands to hear as well. And I'd like to say, if I'm ever in your audience and you feel like you've done a bad gig, you've made some mistakes, I'm not focusing on those things. I'm seeing... I actually prefer to watch a gig where these people in front of me are humans, getting into their music and making something in front of me. And I don't care about the mistakes.
No.
I won't even remember them. So don't worry, everyone. It's okay.
But it is a connection with the audience, because generally I find the audience are on the side of a band that are on stage, you know, and are willing everyone to have a good time. Because that's why you're all out doing these things.
When a band makes a big mistake, very often the audience will go, "Hey!" and applaud, and it's because they're like, "Oh, they're just human beings like us."
And we'll start again and let's do it again.
They're not superhumans.
Yeah.
So most of your, I think everything you've done has come out in Last Night from Glasgow, is that right?
The first EP wasn't actually. We did Sol Zero, just released that ourselves. Then a wee collection of instrumentals we did ourselves. But then after that, everything's been LNFG.
And how did that come about?
I was emailing a lot of record labels, just just pitching our music to places, and Ian actually wrote back really, really, really early, way early, just after the first EP. And the thing is, I had no experience of this, so when he replied, I didn't realise that was actually an indication of interest. And he invited us to the LNFG birthday party, which we couldn't make. I think I was in France, Lily was busy, Dickson was busy, so it just kind of fell away. So waited another couple of months, we recorded some more songs, and I did another round of pitching. Ian got back to us, Dickson and I met for coffee in Edinburgh, and came out of it feeling really happy. We had no idea what it would actually entail. We didn't know if we were going to be a signed band at the end of the day. Then we got a message from him on Facebook saying, the members voted for you, it's all good, we'll release your album.
That was a good day.
Yeah, good, that's nice. I remember my in-laws were listening at that point. They did not understand what was going on, because I was delighted. And I said, we're going to release an album. Yeah, so? What do you mean so? Be excited, god damn it. But so basically that was...
excited for me.
Yeah, so the first EP came out in January 2017, got signed in August 2017, and then from there it was a year till the album, and now we're here. And
the album is a Kipple Arcadia, and you mentioned that the themes are slightly down to kind of what you're influenced by and all those things. I mean, expand on those themes, because there is a lot of kind of utopian, dystopian, sci-fi. Kipple's Philip K. Dick, isn't it? I think. Yeah.
I was in a big Philip K. Dick phase at the time. Blue Flowers is also based on A Scanner Darkly, the book.
Ah, right, okay.
So I really liked the concept of Kipple. And for anyone that doesn't know, it's the kind of like dust and rubbish that builds up in a consumerist society when you're not looking. So you know how sometimes your house just gets messy without you really noticing. It just builds up over time. Kipple kind of does that as well, but the context of it is in a kind of dying civilization where a lot of people have left, and the kind of the ash and the dust is settling. And I like this idea of it's like the consumerist entropy of the universe is always going to go towards everything turning into Kipple eventually, and no one's really noticing until half of it's Kipple. And then the word Arcadia means utopia. It's actually got connotations of more pastoral utopia, so more like nature and wilderness, whereas we brought that into more of a city idea. So the whole Kipple Arcadia thing, in my mind anyway, is like a futuristic utopian city with elements of dystopia, with the Kipple appearing behind your back. But also rebuilding a better society with the Kipple. I've said Kipple so many times, it's such a great word. So without using that word, what I mean is rebuilding society out of the rubbish left over from the people that tried to do it before, using what you've got.
So there's a line in the Cafe Electric, is from the dust we'll build, remodel cathedral spires with plastic bottles. I think that sums up the whole album basically, is rebuilding what we had, but doing it a little bit better using the crap that's left.
Yeah.
And often you see things in the news now as well about people actually making houses out of plastic bottles, out of just rubbish.
Totally.
And that's amazing. I think that's the kind of thing we're going to have to start doing anyway. Like develop a circular economy or something and reuse things.
Or just stop using plastic.
Yeah.
I think the album could easily have degenerated into a very bleak vision of the world. So we always try to put a positive spin on things.
Yeah.
Back when we started this, it was just after 2016, so Trump was elected, Brexit was going on, still is obviously, and then it felt like everything was just so dark and so bleak, and we wanted to try and do something that was a little bit lighter, a little bit more beautiful, and that's how the album kind of came about. It didn't really guide what we wrote, but it was an overarching feeling that we wanted to try and get across.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we can make a better place, but it will take action. It's not just going to happen by itself.
Yeah.
And some of that action will maybe be in a dystopia in the meantime, or in itself seems quite dystopic, but it's on the road to a utopia.
I'm interested, I was talking to some writers recently who have written particularly short stories similarly, and they said the problem is that events kind of move so fast now, and ideas move very fast, that a lot of the things that they've written about are kind of being overtaken. And you were saying about, using waste to create something new, and that, does happen already. And then you've got a song like Back Up Baby, where, this idea that you can actually have another child created in case things go wrong. I mean, that's not too far away from what's happened. But have you found that in your writing, that you think, well, this isn't too far away from now what's happening?
It's just Black Mirror, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose so. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Which
Yeah.
is a term used to describe our music actually once.
Was it?
And I was
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
that
Black
kind
Mirror,
of fits.
the sound of Black Mirror.
Yeah.
That would be alright if you get on in the Charlie Brooker.
I remember somebody.
Sorry, I did interrupt you there.
No, it's like,
I remember somebody described Black Mirror as what if phones but too much. I think that sums us up. It's like what if something's standard but just a bit too much of it.
in answer to your question, I guess yes. With Back Up Baby, a few months after writing it, there was that news about a Chinese scientist developing HIV-resistant babies through cloning and editing genes. And I think that's kind of what I mean by getting to utopia through dystopic means as well, because there's a lot of ethical problems perhaps with the way that he went about it. But if I'm not necessarily saying that particular way of doing it was the best way to get to the goal, because there might be a better way. But looking forward to a future where people can be HIV resistant would save so many lives. So it's like aiming for a utopia and trying to avoid the dystopic bits as we get there, but sometimes it doesn't happen.
Again, I think the themes seem to match the music really well. And were the themes kind of influential in how the music sounded? I mean, was it going to, you've got a kind of, for want of a better term, it's a terrible term, but a futuristic sound, if you like. But certainly you've got this, and we'll talk about what you're doing next in a second, but to me it often sounds like the soundtrack to something, a soundtrack to something visual and, futuristic or science fiction or whatever. And I'm wondering whether the themes that you were writing about kind of fed into the music as well.
I think they probably did. It might have been subconscious. I think our first EP was very different in the way it sounds. It's a bit more organic sounding. I think as we just got some more toys to play with, some more technology, it kind of evolved slightly. I don't think we've ever set out specifically to sound futuristic. I think it just happens that
Those are the tools we had and songs we liked.
Exactly. I'm sure if I don't know, if one of us could play violin or something, I'm sure we would sound very different if we had that at our disposal. But we don't. We have synths, so that's how it comes out. I think there's maybe a couple of bits and pieces, like on Cafe Electric again, there's some very futuristic-y sort of synths in there, and I think that was quite deliberate, because we wanted it to be, that was like the centerpiece of the album. We wanted it to be this massive sounding, almost like a soundtrack to a city, so you felt like you were inside it. So I think that was probably quite deliberate, but there's others where it's just scrolling through the synths, go, oh, that's a nice sound. And, there's not really much more consideration other than that sounds nice.
I think maybe also because the lyrics are kind of in some ways a story, but also like just like an idea spread out into words. Some of the songs end up being more soundtracky, like with movements rather than a strict like verse chorus type structure. That's actually never intentional. I never start writing like a vocal for a song or like the synth part or the bass or anything thinking that we don't want a repeated chorus in that. We probably need a few more of those really, and we're going to try and do more of that. But we never intend for it to be structureless. But I think maybe the way that the theme kind of unfolds means it becomes more like parts of a soundtrack with themes coming in and out rather than a structure.
Yeah, I mean, on Kipple Arcadia, there's actually very few choruses. I think Back Up Baby, Sun Eaters and Space Junk are the only songs that actually have it.
Annihilation, I suppose.
Is that a chorus?
Yeah.
Oh, so it is, yeah. So, we never set out to do that, but I don't think it's not deliberate. It really is just, it's just the way it happens naturally. We are going to try and have a couple more choruses, a couple of sing-song bits, lighters in the air, that sort of stuff. Although I say that now, I know it's going to turn out into this like bleak dystopian nightmare regardless. Anyway.
About half of our songs we've written for the second album have choruses.
Yeah, that's a good ratio.
Yeah.
There's some odd stuff in there. It's going to be good.
So tell us a bit about what's happening next in terms of your music.
We've got quite a lot going on. So the second album's coming out in April 2020. Last night from Glasgow. We're working on that now. That's got a fairly clear theme and an idea. I won't go into too much. It's basically like
I was thinking to see if you're going to reveal it.
It's basically it's sort of late stage capitalism.
Okay.
It's going to be centered on that. Before that, though, we are releasing a score that we wrote. It's called Music for Megastructures. It's the sounds of an imaginary city, because we've always wanted to score a film or a soundtrack or something, or a video game, whatever. Those are difficult gigs to get, so I thought, why not just do it ourselves? And I thought lots of people have written scores for films, but one of my favourite pieces of music is Rhapsody in Blue by Gershwin, and that sounds like New York at the time. I wanted to do something similar, but for an imaginary city. So that's coming out next month.
Brilliant.
So it's like a full album length of cinematic, strange instrumental songs. And
at the end of this podcast, hopefully you'll hear some of those songs.
Yes, you will indeed. They've all got very long and obnoxious names, which I'm quite pleased with.
Excellent.
So that'll be entertaining.
So, and in the meantime, I mean, you've got quite a few gigs coming up, I think.
One or two.
Yeah. So we're playing
Glad Cafe again.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're playing at the Glad Cafe for an event called Play It Like a Woman, which is accompanying a release of a compilation on vinyl, actually, with lots of female artists, and it's raising money for Glasgow Rape Crisis as well. So that's our next one. It's going to be great, and I'm really excited to see the other bands as well.
Good artists on that record there.
Lots
of Fionn and Life Model.
Then after that we're playing Paisley for the Scottish Alternative Music Awards takeover. We've never played in Paisley before, so that's going to be really fun. And then playing the Sneaky Pete's in Edinburgh in April to support Ira Lou, who we played our second ever gig with way back in 2017. Lovely people, great band. Yep. I'm sure by the time this is released we'll be able to say that we're playing Kelburn Garden Party as well. So that
July, is it?
Yes, I believe so. So that'll be really fun. And between all that, we'll be recording the album and playing the odd gig here and there. But we're making a concerted effort to play less.
Okay.
We want it to be more of an
people
event.
Want us more.
Exactly. Yeah. Treating me. So we've got some. Oh, and in June we're releasing a double A-side single of the songs I mentioned earlier that we wrote in France.
Okay, excellent.
They're very, very, very different. Very stripped back. So it'll be interesting to see how they're received.
Great.
I love them. I'm really into those songs.
Yeah, they're really good. And it'll be interesting to see what James does with them.
Yeah, James Sanger invited us over to France. He is producing, written for Keane, Dido, U2, Manic Street Preachers, Annie Lennox. He discovered us last year. We went over to visit in France,
Wow.
It was a great week. Basically,
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, basically, I babysat his kids while the guys wrote music. It was really good. It was just
That's maybe not exactly true.
it was just
That's your main memory of
yeah.
you.
You
lovely,
cooked for his kids.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're the loveliest
Married
family.
for them.
Yeah, they're so lovely. We had a really good
Yeah.
time, and we'd never sat in a room together and written songs. So this was
That's
I
really
really-
interesting. So it's
yeah.
a different way of doing it.
completely
Yeah.
different, and I think it shows in a way that the songs they're still distinctly L-Space, but they are so sparse in comparison to what we
And
usually
they've got a
do.
chorus. Well, one of them's got a chorus. Well, have they?
Nah, not really. They've almost got a chorus, like a
Yeah.
proto chorus.
They're a wee bit more commercial, shall we say?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we kind of wrote it with.
Unresolved choruses
Oh.
to go with your unresolved chords.
It was really useful having an experienced person there who's not afraid to give criticism.
That's diplomatic.
It was good because usually we
It's very
just write.
friendly though.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he did it in a good way. It was
Yeah.
never like horrible or anything.
No.
It was all valuable because he knows what he's talking about. But we'd never had that before. Whenever we're writing, it's just by ourselves, and there's
Sure.
no like kind of guiding eye. But he would point out things that were good and that were bad, or things that needed to be changed. And I think he helped us see our strengths and weaknesses in a
Yeah,
way that we didn't know
definitely.
before. So the areas we need to work on and the areas that we should not lose and we should keep as something we can see as good inside ourselves. Oh wow, good
Wow, that was-
inside ourselves.
Yeah,
I
good
didn't
grief,
mean
it's
to
like
go
all
that
very
far.
Disney there. It's like the talent was in you all along.
Yeah, but that was good.
Yeah. Also, he's got a very, very commercial eye. You know, everything he produces and writes is for like pop hits. You know, that is his goal. So we've never written anything with that in mind. So I'm not saying that these are going to be massive pop hits. They're still weird, but it was definitely
Weird can be pop hits though.
Yeah,
There's lots of
yeah.
examples of that.
He did say that one of the songs, could be, and he did use his words. He did say that this could be quite a big hit.
Yeah. So
But I don't think he would have just said that flippantly.
Doesn't sound like the kind of person
Well,
to say that.
No.
We'll see
No.
what happens.
Yeah.
The reason he got
Exciting.
in contact with us is to sort of collaborate and be look for sync opportunities. Because that's the way things are going. Because record sales are not big. Or certainly not as big as they were in the 90s when people were buying the Keen album by the bucket load.
exactly.
So things have changed for him, and so he's contacted various different artists to do a bit of collaboration with and see where things might go. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, he found us from our song "Old Machines," which is that was very unusual for us. So it was nice to. It's just a B-side. It was never. I didn't think anything was going to come of it, but it's nice that it had a purpose. So those songs would be interesting.
And
So
they
that's
come out in
June.
June.
Hopefully
Yeah,
June.
hopefully June. Yeah,
Excellent.
we're aiming for June, but we'll see.
And in the meantime, I'm also building some music software with machine learning to generate new music based on inputting other music.
Yeah.
So a little bit of algorithmic composition as well. I don't know what I'm going to do with that yet. It's for a degree, but I intend to do more in that area as well and bring that side to L-Space.
So I mean, it does. Before we round up, it sounds like L-Space. This isn't a band as such. You're going to explore all sorts of different ways of making music and kind of getting music out there. As you say, it's not the old model of release an album, tour it for ages, and it's kind of dead.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or at least dying. So yeah, you're going to do that.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to explore every possible avenue and do lots of different things. I love recording and I love writing music, and I would like to focus on that and release more music as opposed to playing lots of gigs. I think we've changed our tact very slightly. But when you write as much music as we do, you have to do something with it. It's like you either stick it on some bizarre score for an imaginary city, or it sits on your hard drive. So I'd rather it got out there into the world.
Well, very glad it is getting out there. I enjoy it very much. Listen, thanks very much, guys, for coming along today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Cheers.
And we'll be back soon with someone completely different. Cheers.